Hi, how are we doing? So, welcome everyone to the Public Administration Committee meeting. I would like to call the meeting to order at 4:04. And let's get started. I'm going to ask the secretary to call the roll.
Nancy Adams,
Here.
Kim Fitzgerald is excused, Micah Jantz, Michael Schilling,
Here.
Debbie Verdon is on her way.
Okay.
And she is
So the
present.
next, okay. Oh, there you
she
are.
is.
Thanks. It's good to see you, Debbie. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting. The minutes are included in each of your packets. Does anyone have any changes they would like to make to the minutes? If so, all
Move to
right.
approve.
Move to approve. Thank you. There's been a motion to approve in a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. She'll say aye. Okay, thanks. Minutes are approved as presented. Okay. All right, next on the agenda. Proposed amendment to DCC 5102, discharge of weapons.
All right, thank you, Chair Adams. So I'll invite our Police Chief Tom Simpson to come forward and present on this topic.
Madam Chair, committee members, we have a minor amendment to Dallas City Code 5102 that we're proposing here. There's been history. Rockwell Middle School for years has had a Civil War lesson that they teach their sister students, which includes a representation or demonstration of a musket, firing blanks out of that musket. Last year, they reached out to us, and first time they really brought it to our attention, said, hey, we're doing this, let me know. And then realized that it actually was in violation of our code. So that was the city attorney said, oh, we fix this. And he suggested at the time that I could make a decision to either enforce it or not, and I chose not to in that particular case because I didn't see a threat to public health or public safety. Come up again this year, and Lane had actually drafted some language that we could make the change, and it come up once again this year, reminding me. So the proposal here is to put some wording in place that gives the city manager and his or her designee the authority to grant permission for these type of activities should they be presented. So that's, if you look at the attachment you have, there was some rearranging of the specific wording just to make it a little bit more logical, and then the additional language in there under section 3.4 that gives the person in charge of the city the authorization to approve this when it comes up. So any questions about that, I'm happy to answer it, and that's the crux of it, really.
Just only one comment. The school district has been very conscientious about it for years.
Yes.
And they go door to door and put hangers on all the local neighbors so that it's not a jarring awakening when the cannons are going off or the muskets.
And so we don't get those shots fired calls.
Yep.
And they did, they were real good about that, but it just, this really cleans up and makes it a little bit more sensible.
Another example of kind of an oversight was athletic events where, track and field, they have the little starter pistol, and that's now included in the exemption here as well.
And if I may, one other thing that I learned about today was that they also have some archery classes that would fall under the same situation. So that this wording gives the city manager the ability to rectify that as well.
All right.
Because bow and arrows are included in the wording of the primary ordinance. So just all-around good wording to fix
Yes,
this.
Mike,
in my
I move to forward the proposed ordinance and Exhibit A to the city council with a recommendation to approve.
okay. There's been a motion and a second to approve moving this forward, proposed ordinance to, in Exhibit A to the city council with a recommendation to approve.
Is there any further?
Hmm?
Is there any further?
Is there any further questions from the committee? Okay. If hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Thank you. The recommendation is approved to go to council. Thanks,
Thank you.
Chief. Having no other items on the agenda at this time, go ahead and adjourn the meeting of the Public Administration Committee. So, at 4:09. Thank you.
Welcome everybody to the Public Works Committee meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 4:09. Next, we need to approve the March 25th, 2024 meeting minutes.
Move to approve?
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. And next on the agenda is staff reports.
All right, thank you, Chair Jantz. So this first one is applying the cost index to the city's system development charges. The report starts on page 3 of your packet and ends with Exhibit A on page 7. I'll refer to that exhibit here in just a few minutes. So the background of this is that the city charges system development charges for impacts to the city's infrastructure. So water, sanitary sewer, stormwater, transportation, and parks is what's allowed under the state statute to charge a developer for the construction of added development that impacts those systems. And so within that ORS section 223.304, subsection 8 allows for changes to be made to the SDC charges under certain circumstances. That's not a change in like the methodology. And that's what's described on page 7. So under that exhibit is that section of the statute. And so what's allowed is to, under section 8B, is the periodic application of one or more specific cost indexes or other periodic data sources. A specific cost index or periodic data source must be subsection A, a relevant measurement of the average change in prices or costs over an identified time period for materials, labor, real property, or a combination of the three. B, published by a recognized organization or agency that produces the index or data source for the reasons that are independent of the system development charge methodology. And C, incorporated as part of the established methodology or identified and adopted in a separate ordinance, resolution, or order. And so the city, for several years after the SDCs had been last calculated, whenever a master plan is updated, we'll identify them as projects. We'll go through an SDC methodology calculation and establish the rate for the particular SDC that we're charging, whether it's water, sewer, stormwater, transportation, or parks. And so right after those were done, we did apply a cost index for several years, and then in 2014 we just stopped. And then transportation continued through 2018. But then that stopped at that time. And so what this allows is for the city council to apply a cost index to those fees from that time or any period of time between when it was last done and today. And so what I've done is included in this report just some calculations on what our system development charges could be based on the cost indexes available to the city. And so if you look at the tables, table 1 on the first page, again, this is page 3 of the packet, is the current charges that we charge for a system development charge for a single-family dwelling. Now, system development charges are applied to single-family dwellings, to multi-family dwellings, which is a percentage of the single-family rate. It's also applied to commercial and industrial type uses based on a different calculation, all couched back to the single-family rate. And so what I included in this report is just an adjustment to the single-family rate because all the other fees are based off of that single-family residential rate. So again, you can see the current cost of those charges for the 5 different categories of SDCs in Table 1. That's what we currently charge. Then on page 4 of your packet, Table 2 is the 2 cost indexes. Both of these come from a reputable source who calculates cost indexes. It's the Engineering News Record. It's a national publication. The breakdown of how those 2 indexes are calculated is included above Table 2. And then you can see in Table 2 the per year cost index for the construction cost index and the building cost index. And so staff's analysis of these 2 indices is that the construction cost index is affected less by labor costs than the building cost index, because again, it uses the common labor rates instead of skilled labor rates. And so you see that especially in the most recent years where we had high labor cost increases, is why that's reflected in higher cost indexes in like 2021 and 2022 for the building versus the construction cost index. So if you flip over now on page 5 of the report, we start to get into tables 3 and 4, which is what the SDCs would be. How do we continue to apply a construction cost index or a building cost index? So it's a busy table, but it's broken down by columns by individual charges. So for example, the park is the first 2 columns beyond the year. And you can see currently we charge $2,343. If we were to apply a building construction index or building cost index, and you applied it for each of the years that we did not apply that index, that fee today would be $3,825.60 over $2,343. If you did the construction cost index, it would be a little bit less at $3,736.57. So that calculation was done for each of the categories and each of the indices. So if you go to the total column, which is the last 2 columns on the far right side of that table 3, you'll see the current system development charge for a single family house is $14,713. If you were to apply the cost index for each of these years, and you'll notice that transportation doesn't start again until 2019 because we again applied an index through 2018. The other years start in 2015. If you were to apply the CPI for each of those years, the building cost index would have a system development charge for a single family home at $23,041.28, and the construction cost index would be $22,401.73. So just because you can do this doesn't mean you have to do it, and you can charge less than that. You can charge that amount today through an ordinance, but not knowing what the appetite of the committee is, I did include in table 4 an adjustment of the SDCs over a 3-year period. And so again, what that shows is, so one, I assumed that we would choose the construction cost index, because that's, again, it's a little bit more stable. It's not as influenced by labor rates. So it's lower overall than the building cost index. And then I also assumed a 3% cost index for the next 3 years. So I built in, if you stagger it over time, I'm assuming that the construction cost index is going to be about 3%. Could be a little bit less, could be a little bit more. But if you assume that, then the numbers in table 4 are reflected that the current rate total is $14,713. If you equally distributed the index amount over the next 3 years, in 2024, the rate would increase to $17,968. In 2025, you would increase it to $21,223. And then in 2026, it would be $24,478. Again, that assumes a 3% over each of the next 3 years. So that's what that's where we could be. Again, the purpose for evaluating this and looking at it is that we know that our SDCs are based on the construction projects that we've identified in our master plan. Those are 15 to 20-year plans. Over time, the costs that we assume with even our escalation built into those methodologies don't always match up to what's happening on the ground. And so we build in, you're able to build in this cost index to be able to keep up with those construction costs. We know that our construction projects on some of our SDC eligible projects are just more expensive than we have money to apply with what we've collected. So this is a way to kind of catch up and make up for that lost revenue that we haven't realized over the last 7 years or 5 years or 6 years, depending on the category. So looking for any feedback from the committee. Staff's recommendation would be to one, it's kind of a two-part recommendation. One, we should apply a cost index to our SDCs. Staff would recommend the construction cost index. So I feel that should happen regardless of any makeup that we do. But I would also recommend that we make up the difference in the indices over the years that we have not been applying them. Again, you're looking at a roughly $7,700 increase in the single family rate per unit to do that, using the construction cost index.
Actually, I do.
Yep.
Can you remind me where the funds go to on the budget?
Yeah.
Specifically goes to, sorry.
Yep. So when we collect revenue for system development charges, it gets allocated into the system development fund, and in that fund we break it down by category. So water, sewer, stormwater, transportation, and parks all have their own lines for revenue and expenditures. And so any revenue that we collect goes into that fund, and then when we do a project, we expend out of that fund. Again, and projects are only for expansions to the capacity of the system that we're doing the project for. So we can't maintain our water system, but we can add to our water system, or we can make it bigger. So we can put in a larger pipe, and the larger the amount of the capacity increase is what you could apply SDC dollars to. How do you feel? Do you feel okay about charging developers, more? Staff feel that there is a need. This is an allowance allowed in state law to be able to make sure that your SDC charges are keeping up with, inflation. We were doing it for a time. We tried to research why we stopped. We couldn't find the reason. There wasn't a council action that we could find that stopped that back in 2014, and in 2018, it just did. So I'm assuming there was maybe an administrative decision at the time that stopped that. But it's allowed in law through the adoption of a resolution or ordinance to do this. And so staff feel that in order to keep up with inflation, to get our funds where they need to be so that we can complete the projects that we need to do, again, staff are recommending applying the construction cost index from now moving forward, and doing a one-time adjustment to make up for the lost revenue in the past 7 years.
Can I make a comment right now? Thank you. I think it's very important that we go ahead and move with taking a look at this process. I think because of whatever reason at the time, it's unfortunate, and we probably would have been in a little bit different place had we been continuing to collect up to this point. And And we know the city is going to last a long time, and there'll be new people coming, and some of us won't be here anymore. And so I think it's really important that we provide good services, no matter. And I think this will add to making it, it's even as it can be distributed, and that we'll have access to do the things that are going to happen in the future.
I was waiting until everybody was done. I will fully agree. I appreciate the staff's recommendation. Why it stopped in the past would be beyond me. It's a whole lot easier to apply a constant increase that reflects the costs instead of just ripping the Band-Aid off. But at the same time, looking at the amount, it's not a fun amount. And I think ripping the Band-Aid off is a lot better than spreading it over time, even though the staff gave that option in there. So I am in support of the motion that is before us. And so I will move to direct the city attorney to prepare a resolution for the city council that, one, annually applies the construction cost index to each system development charge fee, and two, makes a one-time cost index adjustment to each system development charge category using the construction cost index consistent with table 5 below.
Second. Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you. So next staff report is the illicit discharge ordinance, and we have Mike Quisenberry and Elizabeth Sagmiller here to present on that topic. I don't know, Gary, did you want to introduce it at all? All right. Yes, great.
Am I on?
Yeah.
Good evening, or good afternoon, committee members. I've talked a lot about illicit discharges over the past almost a year. And thanks to Lane and city staff, we now have a draft illicit discharge ordinance. I'm not going to talk too much about it tonight. This is all time for you to ask questions. And I'll look to Lane and to city staff to help me answer any questions you might have. I'm going to hit on a few points, though. So, again, and a lot of this information I've told you before, the ordinance is a combination of inputs from DEQ, EPA, so on and so forth. It's important to note that the requirements in the ordinance are not more restrictive than what is required. So nothing was built in to elevate efforts. The ordinance covers illegal discharges, intentional dumping, illegal connections, and it does cover protection of waterways. The ordinance isn't the easiest thing to read, but it does cover all the requirements. It allows the city to lead with education without automatically slapping a fine on someone. But it does contain language that will allow us to, or allow you to enforce on the bad actors. A lot of language, the Water Quality Management Plan, and that's the directive from DEQ, says that we must implement and enforce a program to detect and eliminate discharges. This ordinance covers that. It covers maintaining a current map of your stormwater infrastructure. And this we didn't talk a whole lot about, but you have GIS personnel that are actively managing the data, which is in line with a requirement of DEQ. And just a note for everybody that DEQ can require that the city give them that information anytime without warning. So again, this is just more of what the ordinance says and what we're directed to do. I really just wanted to, I put this in to make sure that you understood what we were being asked and how it was being addressed. The ordinance says that you are to define the illegal discharges and then provide for allowable non-stormwater discharges. The section numbers are in this slide. If you're confused, remember that one is not allowed, the other is allowed, as long as there's not a potential increase in pollutants. I'm working on the enforcement plan right now, and I've mentioned this to you before. It's escalating steps of enforcement, the first being education, but it does allow for a written warning of violations and remediation. This slide was actually in my last presentation. Again, that messaging note, we want to keep it positive for the city staff and residents both. So next steps, give you time to answer any questions, review and finalize the ordinance in case there's a typo or something. And then at the meeting in July, at the end of the meeting, we'll ask for your approval to move the ordinance forward to city council for adoption. And I think that will be in October. Oh, and that's all I have. Any questions from anyone?
Where does this fit into the ordinance?
I'm sorry, where?
The enforcement response plan?
Oh, it's just referenced
It's
and,
just referenced? So it is referenced in there?
yes. I haven't,
And right, you're not done with it?
yes, yes.
But that, I would assume that you'll be done, will you be done with that at our next meeting though?
Yes, absolutely. I want to make sure that Mike is on board with what I'm laying out for him. Other questions?
You've come a long way in putting this together. Thank you.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
My thanks to Lane and the Public Works staff. This is not easy stuff, and he managed to sort through it and go, oh, that's why. So,
Thanks.
thank
In truth,
you.
I resisted as much as I could. Elizabeth is right. This sets out pretty much the minimum standards required for the city, and this has to pass muster with the DEQ, so we're confident that it's drafted.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, it's under section 6.392, subsection 3. It says, duty to follow the enforcement plan. The city shall follow a written process for enforcement through the escalating steps listed in the City of Dallas Enforcement Response Plan. So that's under the section 6.392 enforcement.
Page 11?
It's on page
10.
20 of the packet.
Oh, okay.
10 and 11 of the
Yeah.
ordinance.
All right.
So we'll include a copy of the draft enforcement plan with the ordinance when it goes to council, if it's moved onto the council.
And just to follow up on that real quickly, the enforcement plan is primarily instructions for city staff. So the tone may be a little bit different than an ordinance.
So It doesn't actually, are we calling it the enforcement response plan?
Yes.
And does it actually say that?
So it's
I mean,
right here,
3.
number 3, under 6.392. So on page 20 of your packet. So in subsection 3 says, duty to follow enforcement plan. The city shall follow a written process for enforcement through the escalating steps listed in the City of Dallas Enforcement Response Plan.
So that's, I guess that's my clarification that I would like to see, is if we're gonna call it the enforcement response plan, then we should, the word response isn't in there, right?
It is
3,
under subsection 3,
duty to follow enforcement plan.
keep going. And through
Okay,
steps
Dallas.
listed in the City of Dallas Enforcement Response Plan.
Okay, I just keep not finishing this up.
It's all right.
Just want it to be clear.
We're here to answer your question. Yep.
Is there any reason it wouldn't be, why isn't it before that? I mean, just duty to follow it.
Oh, I can, that's easy to do.
Yeah, we can,
It wasn't in the master ordinance.
Yeah.
We can add
yeah,
that.
You
so,
follow, just so it's
so
clear.
under the heading,
So- so
duty to
it's
follow
fine.
enforcement
Yeah.
plan,
Yeah.
yeah, enforcement response plan, yeah, I see. Yep,
I know it's repetitive, but
that's fine.
That would be an easy adjustment.
I think it's clearer that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, we can do
Yes.
that.
Right,
Got it.
all right.
Other questions? Lane, did you have anything that you wanted to add about this?
That's- I appreciate your patience and work.
And
We'll
we
do it again.
And we do understand it's education, 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 and more education.
Yes.
thank
And
you,
the,
Michael.
the ordinance or the enforcement response plan clearly
Yeah.
spells that out.
Yep.
Good, great.
So there is a recommended motion on page 9 of your packet.
Won't this come back in July for this committee?
Do you want it to come here, or do you want it to go to the council in July?
I want it to come here.
Want it to come here? Okay,
Because we can't.
then don't look at that recommendation.
Because until the response plan is ready.
You want to see the response plan here before you go to the council.
Okay.
Perfect, let's do that.
All right,
I would assume that's why.
Excellent.
Anything else you want?
thank you. Okay. wait a
Thank
minute.
you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. So the final staff report is update on the Public Works Department reorganization. And our Public Works Director, Gary Marks, is here to tell us about that.
Chairman Jantz, members of the committee, it's good to see you. So during the recent Budget Committee meeting, Brian addressed in his budget message the reorganization that we have planned for the Public Works Department. I thought it would be appropriate here for the Public Works Committee to receive a staff report that provides a pretty good overview of what that reorganization looks like. I've got detail in the report, so I won't get too far into the weeds here, but did want to cover some of the basic overview of what we're doing. Basically, the 3,000 or 30,000 foot elevation view is that, as you're all aware, we have aging infrastructure, and over the next decade, we have some particular challenges, both in maintaining what we have and building new systems to replace what's aging out. So we've tried to restructure the department so we could respond better to these needs. So one of the first things we're doing is we're taking Tom Gilson's position, which he now has the title of engineering supervisor. He will become what we're calling a special projects manager, and he will focus exclusively on the heavy infrastructure projects, the renewal effort of replacing systems or facilities that are aging out, things like the Mercer Dam, expansion of our raw water capacity, construction of the new reservoir up on James Howe Road, the Lockville Node sewer, the various phases of implementing that. We have some extensions of some of our roads throughout the community as the community continues to develop. Others that come to mind is Godsey Road, both the bridge project and the street, which we're anticipating will be separate projects due to funding sources. So Tom will no longer have responsibilities in development review and supervising inspections and environmental services. He'll be exclusively pushing forward our capital projects
and helping us to accomplish those through our capital improvement plan and through our master plans. So the folks that Tom supervises right now in what we call the engineering division will be renamed Permitting, Development, and Environmental Services. Those employees will shift under Jennifer Ward, who up to this point has the title of Parks Manager, and up to this point she's been supervising parks, the Aquatic Center, and our facilities maintenance. She will keep those divisions, but also gain this division that we've renamed, the engineering division, which we've renamed Permitting, Development, and Environmental Services. She will have a new title of Administrative Services Manager. She'll also be taking on for the department our departmental purchasing, policy administration, grant management, and all things administration in the department. And then finally, we're adding one position to the department, a new operations manager. We've covered the part of new infrastructure. Now there's the part of maintaining what we've got to the best we can. The new operations manager can bring a higher level focus to developing and keeping current our systems maintenance schedules, keeping our staffs focused on those areas where we need to be maintaining, trying to do that better than we've done it in the past. And I think we've done a decent job up to this point, but we always know that there's room to improve. This person will also be looking at our capital improvement needs as far as ongoing maintenance of our systems on a day-to-day basis in that nature. And also our emergency management preparation. So when something bad happens, we're better able to step into the role of emergency management as far as our water, sewer, stormwater, our streets, all those critical systems that will come to bear in an emergency as far as infrastructure goes. And then the other change is that Megan Johnson, who is our executive assistant, who has been part of the engineering division, will now report directly to me, which kind of makes sense. She actually acts on behalf of our entire department as an assistant, but she'll be reporting directly to me. So I think all in all, what we're trying to do is bring a greater focus both to the day-to-day maintenance of our facilities, those new capital projects we have to address, and also keeping our attention on our facilities, our park facilities, our aquatic center, all the City Hall, all of those facilities, and also staying true to our responsibilities for environmental services mandates that we have to satisfy for both state and federal, and several of those other areas. But anyway, so I didn't want to get too far into the weeds. Maybe I did a little bit, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to respond to those.
I think it's exciting, so that's my comment. Way to go.
Thank you.
Great comment.